Coming up next on the Giants Chronicles podcast, we're talking with Chris The Entertainah. Coming up next, we're talking Giants offseason with him on Giants Chronicles podcast. What's going on, everybody? This is your host, Gabe, and we have a special guest today. Chris The Entertainah is with us. Chris, what's up, man?
I'm excited to come on, man. I know you asked me on my YouTube channel if I wanted to pop on, and I always love talking with new Giants content creators. It was cool, the intro. I saw you at a couple of Giants games, taking some pictures, so that's awesome, man. Glad to be on with a Giants fan.
I love going to Giants games, not just because of the game, but the experience you get out of it, like the players' entrance and exit. And, most of the players are like come over at the end of the game, not necessarily in the beginning, but after the game, they come over to sign autographs. It's a pretty cool experience. Pretty cool.
Oh, I love going to Giants. You can't beat it. I mean, you got to get the early tailgate, and there's nothing like watching football on Sunday.
Yeah, but we got a lot to talk about, of course, with Danial Jones, Saquon Barkley, list goes on. So how you doing today?
I'm doing good, man. I'm nervous. Not about this, but I'm nervous about, what's coming. Because I think this is like I say this every year because I'm a Giants fan, but I really believe this is like the biggest offseason since I've been on YouTube because in the balance, you don't know the direction of this team. Like you're like, okay, are we pushing forward with this guy or are we not? And when I talk about that, I mean Danial Jones. It's the quarterback. It's the most important position.
Right.
And and it's really Joe Schoen's first true offseason. Like last year, we all know he was kind of hamstrung, right? He didn't have no cap space. He had too early picks, but I could have made those picks. I mean, Kayvon Thibodeau, I could have made those picks. So, I think this is like his first true offseason where he's got some money to play with, and he's got some really critical decisions to make between Saquon Barkley and Danial Jones. So, I'm excited, and I'm excited. Maybe this sounds like a little nerdy, but one of the things I'm most excited about is when he does, I think, I've been on record saying I think it's a lock. It's just a matter of what it's going to be. When he does sign the Danial Jones contract.
Yeah. Oh, Danial Jones is a lock. Yeah.
How is he going to structure it? Like, that's what I'm excited. I'm actually excited to see that. Like, how this new general manager structures contracts to try to give this team the best ability to build long term. So there's a lot of cool things coming up over the next 2 or 3 weeks with the New York Giants.
For sure. I think one of the things I was excited about when he came down from Buffalo is how they did construct contracts up there. They were Brandon Beane, they ran a tight operation up there. And you see now how they walked into a bad situation. They fixed it up, and now they're one of the superior teams in the league. And now we have Joe Schoen coming from that tree of Buffalo. And I'm very interested to see what he, like you said, what he does with contracts, Leonard Williams. The list goes on of like what he could do this offseason. But of course, I'm excited because I know that whatever he does, he's doing what he thinks is best for the organization. So,
yeah, I think as a fan, that's what you have to do, right? Like, I'm guilty of it. I'm not even guilty of it. I still don't think what I did with Gettleman was wrong. I gave him a chance. I gave him 4 years to try to build a team. And he failed. But if I gave Dave Gettleman 4 years, you bet your ass I'm giving Joe Schoen 4 years. And I'm going to let him try to build this team in his vision. So I'm not going to say I'm going to agree with everything the guy does, but I'm going to at least try to make sense of it. I'm going to give his opportunity to build this team. So I think that's what's so exciting about this offseason is even though everybody has their opinion on what they should do, if you're at least a rational thinker and you have an open mind and you try to be fair and look at everything, you could at least say to yourself, there's a lot of avenues that he can go.
Oh, yeah.
So I think that's what makes this offseason so fun, anxious.
You go on mute? Hold up. Something happened with your mic, Chris. It says their mic isn't connected.
I think we're good now.
You're good. Keep going. Firing away.
I don't know what happened, but we're good.
All good.
But yeah, I don't even know what I was saying, but we're good. You hear me?
Yeah, you're good. Yeah.
I was talking about Schoen and all the decisions he has this offseason and how everything's so critical. So, but yeah, I can't wait, man. I can't wait to talk about the upcoming offseason, and I can't wait to see what ultimately happens.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because you have Danial Jones, who kind of Shane's let the cat out of the bag and said he's going to be here. We're excited he's going to be here. So you kind of know franchise tag or contract, Danial Jones is going to be here. And then you have Saquon Barkley, which is a very interesting topic because, look, let's face it. If you go to MetLife Stadium, you are seeing Saquon Barkley jerseys all over the place. I mean, he is a fan favorite, really. He's probably one of the biggest fan favorites. And I think that's kind of maybe where he's coming from with his leverage. Maybe. I mean, the thing that I look at is like the idea that he is looking for Christian McCaffrey money is bonkers to me. Number one, because he's not going to get that on the market. He's not going to get that on the market. And number two, because even when we do throw him the ball, he either drops it or he like juggles it. If you ever watch him catch, like training camp, I watched him do the same thing in training camp. He would like bobble it and then like catch it. And so it's just like, to me, I look at CMC and I'm like, well, he's a dual threat running back. He can catch, he can even he's thrown it sometimes. So I mean, he's worth that, but Saquon, I don't think he's worth that 16 million. So what do you think? What do you think an ideal middle place would be for Saquon Barkley?
I don't want to bash Saquon. I love Saquon. I agree with you about CMC. The more you watch of CMC, the more you realize how he's a more polished route runner. Like he's a more natural wide receiver. There's no doubt about it. Saquon Barkley is definitely a dual threat running back, but he's not on the level in terms of being a route runner and the hands of a guy like a CMC or even a guy like an Alvin Kamara. I think Barkley rather is probably a better in between the tackles runner than a guy like Kamara, but he's not as polished of a wide receiver.
Right.
Here's what I'll say about Barkley. I think somebody's going to give him that money. I do, and I think he knows that because there's a lot of teams that have cap space, right? The Bears, for example, have 90 million, and if you're the Bears, it's not hard to convince yourself you got a young quarterback with Justin Fields, and you think about the capabilities of him and Barkley in the backfield. With Justin Fields' running ability, with all the cap space that you have to spend, you're trying to build the team around Fields as he still only has 2 or 3 years left on that rookie salary. So you're trying to capitalize on that. I can see a team like that spending, right? $15-16 million. But if I'm Joe Schoen, I think the number that's come out, that's where I said it. And I hate saying that because Barkley, I've said it since he's my favorite player in the team. I love Barkley.
Yeah, right.
But I think as a fan, sometimes you have to think logically. And right now with like Barkley may be worth $15 million, but not for the New York Giants. He's not worth $15 million a year for the New York Giants because of all the other holes we have on this team. Build up the line, get some receivers for Danial Jones, and you could draft a running back in the 4th round. You could sign a cheap running back in free agency.
Right. And the other thing is there are those like running backs on the market. Like there are running backs on the market.
Yeah, the market's flooded this offseason.
There are running back like that won't require that, $16 million. Excuse me. There are very interesting avenues for them to take with Saquon Barkley. I don't believe they'll do the franchise tag. If they get a Daniel deal done, I don't think they'll go the franchise tag.
I thought they would for the longest time, but now reports are coming out that when I read that today, and who knows, it could be clickbait. People are looking for stories, but I trust Paul Schwartz at least a little bit. I mean, he works for the New York Post. I've quoted his articles before. He works with Lawrence Tynes. If he's coming out and saying that they don't intend to tag him at 10.1, like if they're not going to tag him at 10.1, like what does that tell me? They're going to let him go. Unless they're at least going to let Barkley see what he could get. And if Barkley strikes out, they'll bring him back. But if a team's willing to give him $14-15 million a year, I don't think he's coming back.
Yeah, I mean, I was talking about this today with some people, is like, when you look at Saquon Barkley, you look at his rookie year, which was, of course, eye-opening.
He was the best running back in football that year.
Yeah, offensive rookie of the year. It was pretty impressive. And when in year 2, he was still pretty decent. It was just that injury. I think he had
a high ankle sprain. Yeah,
high ankle sprain that kind of like killed him. And then the next year was it the torn ACL? Yeah, next year was the torn ACL week 2 at Chicago. Yeah. And that sucked, man. That was terrible. I mean, when you see that player going out on the cart, you just know, like, man, That's crazy.
Yeah,
And
well,
that
the Barkley wasn't really Barkley year 2 until the last 3 or 4 weeks when he
mhm,
fully recovered from the high ankle sprain, and then you
yep,
left here on a really good note, right? We remember the Washington game when I
yep.
think Jones threw like 5 touchdowns and Barkley had the big game and he looked like himself. And then you come into year 3. First game we kind of got stuffed because I think we played the Steelers.
Yep, it was Steelers Monday Night Football. Yep.
Yeah, he got killed in that game, but it was the whole offense, and it was a really
Yeah.
good defense. And then week 2, I think it was the first quarter, like the 5th or 6th play from the line of scrimmage offensively, and the guy tears his ACL. And then the next year, it was a mental recovery, more so, I think, than a physical recovery.
Yeah.
And then this year, you finally see the real Saquon Barkley, and now here we are.
Right.
And I think, like, like people say he's worth $16 million, and I definitely think you can make the argument that he is. But if I'm a team,
Yep.
like, if you want to make the argument that he's as good as Christian McCaffrey, I can at least see somebody making that argument. But the difference is when Christian McCaffrey signed that $16 million a year contract, he was 23.
Right.
Saquon's 26, and he's coming off an ACL tear.
Yes.
So maybe he could get 15 or 16, but he ain't getting the same amount of guaranteed money. He's just not.
Yeah, I know. I thought, I mean, he sounded like after the Eagles game that he did want to be here. And what interesting is he said, I don't want to reset the market. I want to be here kind of opposite of Danial Jones in the way. So that kind of gave me like, maybe we could work something out here. But I guess, I mean, it looks like he's wanting top of the dollar money. And you look at someone like Derrick Henry, who has led the league in rushing for so many. It was Josh Jacobs this year, I believe, right? But
he had a big year. I know that. Yeah.
Yeah. Derrick Henry,
I think it was Josh Jacobs.
Derrick Henry every year is a top 2 running back, and he's getting paid $12 million. I mean, same way.
And I think the $12 million was because of the age at which he signed it, right? I think he was like 26 when he signed that. So if you're and I understand the market goes up. So 12 million then is more like 13 now, maybe 13 and a half now.
That's the max.
His market.
Yeah.
Maybe that's his market.
Yeah.
But it's not, for me, it's not 15. Certainly not with the Giants. If the Bears want to give him that, have at it.
That's like, I feel like that's where Joe Shane's gonna be like, no, the 13.5 million. Maybe that can be the middle ground. I think that would be the max I would go. I don't know about you. That's the max I would go. I wouldn't go 14 million. That's too much.
My max with Barkley now, I mean, I'm only going to project what I think Shane's max with Barkley is now, because that's all that matters. I think it's 4 for 50, which is $12.5 million a year, or 3 for 37.5, 3 for 39 maybe, which is 13 per year. But I think it's like 4 for 50 with like 30 guaranteed, maybe 25. Like it's only gonna be like a 2-year commitment. It's gonna be like 4 for 50 with 25 guaranteed, in a contract that maybe only take like a $3 or $4 million hit after year 2 if you want to get out.
Yeah,
that's the type of deal I think he's willing to give Saquon Barkley.
I feel like under pressure, like I feel like when we get closer to like the deadline of free agency, it's gonna pull some of his heartstrings, though. I mean, he's closer to, he grew up in the Allentown area, or he was that's where
he's a Jet fan. He grew up a Jet fan.
Yeah, he grew up a Jet fan, but he lived, I believe I think he lived in the New York for a little, but then he moved to Allentown, and I mean that's closer to New York than if he goes to Chicago. Like, so
of course. Yeah.
So the one thing is like you wonder, like, does he really want to pack his bags up, leave New York, or does he just want to I'll just take the 12.5 million. That's what people like Chubb are getting paid. Top 5 running backs are getting paid 12.5 million. There's no, I mean, I just see like, okay, so where are the running back needy teams you think of? All right, you got Buffalo. Everyone always tries to connect him to Buffalo. They don't have that much cap space to work with. I don't know where people think they're going to find money to pay him. You got Miami. I mean, they're pass-heavy offense as it is, but they don't have that much money to work with either, because they just paid Tyreek Hill and
Tua's coming up on a contract potentially. Yeah.
You don't know who Saquon Barkley. You don't know who your quarterback is down there. That's a whole situation in Miami. You got Tua Tagovailoa, who has shown. I mean, you just don't know what the head injury thing and everything. It's just, it's a situation.
I'm looking at the list right now. I've not looked at like teams that have a ton of cap space, but I'm looking at it now. The Bears obviously make sense. They have $100 million in space. They're in on everybody. The Falcons, maybe, right? They have $56 million. Maybe they throw money at them. The Raiders, they're going to lose Jacobs. Probably not, though, because if they're letting Jacobs go, they're probably not going to sign Barkley.
They're tagging Jacobs. They're going to tag him.
Yeah, so they're not bringing him back. The Giants, obviously, we'd be letting him go in this situation. We're actually fourth the cap space, but that's going to go fast. And then you got the Texans. I think his best fit is either if he hits free agency, like which team is willing to throw money at him. Yeah, I'll give you another team actually because they only have $17 million in space, but there's always ways to move money around.
Manipulate the cap. Yep.
Jaguars. You got Trevor Lawrence still in the rookie. Well, I know they got ETN, but
they got ETN. Right. That's the other thing. Does Saquon really want to take part in a duo?
Maybe the Ravens, but the thing is they got Lamar Jackson. They got money to spend there.
Yeah.
But I think the Bears and the Falcons make the most sense just because of the amount of cap that they have.
Right. Right. They're gonna look at everyone. I mean, seriously.
So if I had to guess, if he's not gonna be a Giant, I think he'll be a Chicago Bear.
Yeah. And honestly, I wouldn't mind that. I wouldn't mind. I wouldn't. Because it's not like an NFC East team, and we play them. Do we play them like every other year, right? Something
seems like it. And every time we play the Bears, Saquon Barkley goes off.
Yeah,
he does. Like every time we play, like some of his greatest games as a Giant have been against the Chicago Bears. But I think he's good. Yeah, if he's not a Giant, I think he'll be a Bear.
Yep, that's interesting perspective. Another person, I think we covered the Saquon topic pretty well. Beat that to a stick. But. What about Julian Love? He is he goes along with the Chicago Bears too. He's an interesting
come from Notre Dame, that area. Yeah.
Yeah. He's an interesting topic because he had, in my eyes, he had one good year of production, kind of like Danial Jones in a way. And now he wants top of the dollar safety money. And I just don't know if he's really worth that when we can draft someone and we still have Dane Belton and Jason Pinnock played pretty good when he played. So there's a lot of alternative options that could probably step in and play that role either just as good as or just a little under what he did. I think he played in a pretty friendly role. So what do you think about Julian Love?
Like, no pun intended. I love Julian Love. Like he's he's played well for us. I do think he fits the defense very well. I said that as soon as they brought Wink over with the way that you could move him around in the defense. Julian Love's played all over for the Giants, right? There's been times he's played outside. He's played in the slot. He's played safety. Yep. And I think he had his best year this year because he was kind of in a defined role. They weren't moving him around quite as much.
Right.
But I like Julian Love, but every player has a price.
Yep.
And if you're the Giants, safety to me is probably – and I don't want to like downplay the position. Like it's certainly important to have, especially in this defense. Like you want versatility. But when I think about important positions on the defense, you think edge, corner might even be one, like lockdown corner. But you think corner, you think edge, you think interior defensive line is becoming more and more important in today's NFL. To be able to get that interior pressure to stop the run, that's much more important to me than a safety. A coverage linebacker is much more important to me than a safety.
Yeah.
And you've already got Xavier McKinney that you're more than likely going to have to pay.
I was just going to bring that up.
How much money are you going to commit to that position? And if you're Joe Shane, you say to yourself, and I don't know what their stance is with McKinney. We'll get a better judgment next offseason. But if McKinney is in the long-term plans and they do plan to extend him, I can't see them giving Julian Love any money. Like, if Julian Love's willing to come back here for $6-7 million a year, sure. But if you're Julian Love and the Bears or the Falcons or somebody's willing to give you $12-13 million a year, you're taking it. So again, much like Barkley, I think it comes down to what other teams are willing to pay him. But if Julian Love has interest, I don't think he's back with the Giants. And I think the Giants let him go. They get a comp pick. Maybe you get a 4th-round comp pick or something like that. But that's where I think that's at. I don't think he'll be back.
Yeah, I mean, in my mind, people aren't talking about it enough, like in my head, because I feel like everyone has kind of underrated that. Everyone's focused on the two key players, Danial Jones and Saquon Barkley, and that's going to be where most of our cap is going to end up going to. But you also have Julian Love, who now wants top of the market in the safety market, and he can easily walk and probably go get more somewhere else. But we also have young players like Dane Belton and Jason Pinnock that we could plug in that role, and I think it's a very friendly role in my mind. I mean,
and you could always draft the safety. You could draft a guy in the 3rd round, and you have players that are young and emerging, not at the safety position specifically, but in that secondary, right? A guy like Aaron Robinson's going to be coming back from injury next year. He could play a nice part, a nice role in this defense next year. Flott, who I liked, if he could pack on some.
I like him. Yeah.
So To me, you got to. There's a walkaway price for Love, and what price? If I had to guess, 8, 8.5. That's probably the wall. I don't think Shane's touching 10 with Julian Love. I'd be surprised.
No, hey, I don't think so. Yeah, but and he said with Julian Love as well, with so many other players and Saquon Barkley, the value is off. Like they think he's worth this, they think they're worth that, and that's where I'm like, there's gonna be players we can't re-sign. Of course, I think Julian Love might have to be one of them.
Shane's not gonna cave.
No,
he's demonstrated that since he's been here. He has not done necessarily the most popular thing or the most player-friendly thing, right? He took the job year one. First thing he did, he said, no, Daniel, you're proving it. I'm not giving you the fifth-year option.
Nope.
Then at the trade deadline, all the fan bases, and rightfully so, like it's the first time in forever the Giants have a chance to hopefully do something in the playoffs. Everybody's screaming at him, get a wide receiver. He said, no, I'm not overpaying for Chase Claypool. He won't do it. And I think
that was a terrible trade by the Bears, by the way. Terrible. They basically
32nd pick. 32nd pick.
They basically traded a first-round pick because the Miami got stripped of their first-round pick. So that pick basically ends up in any other draft would be a first-round draft pick. Like that is and he didn't even do anything when he got there.
Yeah, it was horrible trade and
terrible trade.
And what do? Shane goes against Hodgins for nothing.
Right.
Who quadruples his production. But yeah, so I think Shane's going to stick to his guns, man. I think during if you listen to that press conference, if you use your brain and you don't use your heart and you listen, he constantly said at the end of the year, I have a walkaway price, blah, 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 blah. So to me, that's screaming at players like Julian Love. I'm not overpaying for you. And when he talked about Danial Jones, he said it twice. He's coming back. And when he said that, to me, a lot of people are like, why is he tipping his hand? He's hurting negotiations. To me, that was like, he's telling his agent. He's saying he's looking Daniel Jones' agent right in the eyes when he says it. You come in with $45 million a year, he's getting tagged, but he's coming back no matter what. We know we got the power. That's what he was saying there. I don't think we want to tag him, but that was like his message when he said it. That's how I interpreted it when he said it. When he said he's coming back, Daniel Jones is going to be here. That's him saying, you can play as much hardball as you want. We're going to give him a franchise tag if you come with that.
Yeah, I mean, Daniel, I mean, the one thing I've been impressed with Joe Schoen is like what you saw with Dave Gettleman was that I bet if we had Dave Gettleman as our general manager still, Saquon Barkley already signed $16 million a year.
Yeah, of course.
$16 million a year already, wrapped up in a gift. And we're here being like, yay, but whoa. Like, and like with Kenny Golladay, I don't think originally Dave Gettleman really wanted to pay him that much money, but I think he saw us like, oh, let's get Kenny Golladay.
Are you a basketball fan at all?
Like I like the Knicks. I'm a big Knicks fan.
I was going to compare it to a signing the Knicks made. The Golladay signing for me was like almost identical to the Amari Stoudemire signing, where it was like when the Knicks signed Stoudemire. You, as a Knicks fan, you're excited. I was excited when we signed Golladay because I'm like, we finally got a wide receiver. But in the back of your head, you're like, this probably isn't going to work. And it was the same thing with Amari Stoudemire when they signed him. You're like, the guy's got 2 bum knees. They struck out. They didn't get the initial plan with LeBron. They didn't get Dwayne Wade or Chris Bosh. And you're excited they got a star with Amari Stoudemire. But it was a star that you're like, this probably won't work out. And it was the same thing with Golladay when they signed it. It's like, he probably wasn't plan 1. He probably wasn't plan 2, but they know we're desperate for a wide receiver. So they're just going to throw a bunch of money at the problem and hope that it works.
Right. And if you remember that offseason, it was a lot of big payings. There was the Adoree Jackson, Leonard Williams, and Kenny Golladay were the headliners. And then you had like Kyle Rudolph, which
and you know what? A lot of signing, a lot of other people forget it might have been the worst signing was the Logan Ryan signing.
Oh my gosh.
It was completely unnecessary because people forget about it because it happened on Christmas Eve before the year ended.
Right.
They gave him 3 years, $30 million. And listen, I love Logan. Like I loved him that first year, but you let Zeitler walk. Our offensive line was atrocious. You let Zeitler walk for like $6 million because you spent $30 million on Logan Ryan because Joe Judge had close ties to him with New England. So that was another horrible signing that offseason.
Oh my gosh, Logan Ryan. Oh, also he's not getting re-signed by the Bucks, but that's a different conversation. But yeah, I mean, Shane, he's smart. He knows what he's doing. And with Dave Gettleman, I felt like he always would kind of lie to us. Like he would make up stuff like, "Oh, we're getting close. Like this is our year." Like kind of every year, he never was really honest with us. Where Joe Shane comes into the presser and he's like, "I understand there's a gap between us and the rest of the division." Like he literally said, "There is a talent gap between us and the Eagles, the Cowboys." I don't think he said the Commanders, but there's a little talent gap. But like that's honesty that I feel like us Giants fans have wanted to see for years. Like we haven't seen that before.
That's the one thing that you could say about Shane. He has been an open book. Like he hasn't told you who he's drafting, but when he first took the job, people were questioning last year, is Jones going to be back? He said right away, Daniel Jones is going to be the quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
And he has said the same thing this offseason. And not just with Daniel Jones, with everything. Mm-hmm. He's been an open book. He has not lied to you. He has not tried to represent things differently. He has come out and said from the start, this is a process. This is that we're not trying to build this team in 1 year. He's still taking it slow and steady. He's still trying to build this thing the right way. That's the one thing that you got to really appreciate about Joe Shane. Whether or not he's a good general manager, I don't know yet. I'm not going to jump the gun. I think he's off to a really good start. I think he's done a lot of really good things. But the one thing you say about Joe Shane from day one, he's intelligent. That's obvious. But two, he came in with a defined plan.
Oh, yeah.
Like it wasn't like Dave Gettleman who came in and he was kind of just shooting from the hip. It felt like year one. Like, what are you trying to do? You're trying to win, trying to rebuild. Yeah. Disaster. And then he switched the plan up in 2019. Then he switched the plan up again in like 2021. It was like he had like 3 different plans over 4 years. Yeah. He has come in with a defined plan day one. Mm-hmm. And I don't think he's going to go away from that. I think he's going to build this thing the right way.
The other thing is now switching over a little to the draft, as this is going to be a huge, important draft for the New York Giants. Last year, kind of just recap on last year's draft, I kind of categorized last year's draft as like, listen, we got to see year 2 because most of those players injured. I felt like it held back. Kayvon Thibodeau ended with a season with a boom. I mean, he's
a monster.
He's exploded at the end of the year. I would not go back. People ask me, "Oh, would you go back?" Nope, I would not. I would keep that pick exactly the way it is. People ask me, like, of course, it's like Cowboys fans and stuff that ask me. Like one Cowboys fan, this guy, I just young kid. If you're out there,
at least after 1 year, you could absolutely, obviously, debate the Neal pick. But you can't debate the Thibodeau pick. You can't.
No. Yeah. But Neal is an interesting situation. I think that ankle injury held him back. Was it an ankle injury? What?
I think he had some kind of. I wasn't obviously torn, but I think he had like a sprained MCL.
Yeah.
It was like a semi-serious injury.
Yeah, and I think that just held him back the rest of the year. And we'll see what happens with him in year 2. I mean, I think he still has upside. I think he's still going to be a solid tackle for the New York Giants.
Well, I'm not worried about him.
I'm not worried.
Worst case scenario, Neal will be a really good guard. Like that's worst case scenario. But like no, I think like you said, at worst, I think he's going to be an average starting right tackle in the NFL. I think he's going to be better than that, but that's at worst. And if that's what happens, I'll still be okay with that. If you have an average right tackle and an incredible left tackle, I could work with that.
Right, because I mean that's better in the checkbook, but it's very interesting because with the cap, you have like everyone looks at the Giants and they're like, man, they have this great cap space situation, and they do, but then you look at players like they might be looking to extend like a Dexter Lawrence, and he's gonna want top of the tier.
He's getting $24 million a year, $23 million a year.
Yeah, I mean that, and why not? I mean he somewhat deserves it.
Of course.
Do you really want to run the risk? I mean, I guess you would franchise tag him after this year if you can't get something done. But Shane did say he would be open to. I think that's like really down the road, like closer to like offseason program. But that's definitely something to look into. As you know, the earlier you get it done, the less money it's probably going to cost you. Because the thing is, if he has 2 back-to-back years, then you see consistency gives him more.
Now you're talking Aaron Donald level money.
Yeah, right.
But he was an All-Pro this year. So I would be shocked. I don't want to use the term shocked. I would be very surprised if Dexter Lawrence is not extended before the start of this upcoming season, because if you're Dexter Lawrence's agent, like if Dexter Lawrence doesn't get extended before the start of the year, he should fire his agent. Like you're coming off an all-pro season,
right?
And you're going to let your client play on 1 year, $11 million. What if Dexter Lawrence gets hurt?
Yeah.
So like, I would be very surprised. I expect Dexter Lawrence to be extended before, but obviously, I think the more immediate need right now is Danial Jones and Barkley and figuring them out. And once they get that situated, that's when I think they'll do it. But there's no doubt in my mind, Dexter Lawrence, he will be a Giant long term, and I'm almost positive he'll be extended before the start of this year. I think he'll be extended.
Yeah, but another topic is what is Shane gonna do in this offseason? As we know, like he's not gonna take them like the big swings. I mean, we know obviously he's not gonna do that. But obviously, in my mind, the positions that need to be addressed via free agency possibly are linebacker, not like a Tremaine Edmonds, but a solid linebacker, kind of like Blake Martinez in a way when we signed him.
Yep, I've made that exact comparison. That's what I like, a second-tier linebacker.
Yeah,
yep,
second-tier linebacker, like someone I'm looking at right now, Denzel Perryman from the Raiders. He's the only thing that popped up with him is he's a little injury prone, but he's also up there in age, but he was like, I believe, a Pro Bowler and All-Pro just a couple years ago. And so he's a solid veteran linebacker option that won't come at that $15 million Tremaine Edmonds price that you're talking. But
people have also brought up, I've seen a lot. I'm guilty. Like, because right now my focus is on Jones and Barkley and our current free agents. Right. But another name that a lot of people have brought up to me is David Long. I don't know a whole lot about him, but a lot of people.
Is that the Tennessee linebacker?
Yeah, he's Tennessee, and a lot of people think he's a really good fit for this defensive scheme. But they're going to find somebody. I do think they're going to sign a linebacker. We have no linebackers, so I think we're going to. I think it'll be a second tier, like you said, maybe in that $8 to $10 million area on a per year average.
Yeah,
but I think we'll sign a pretty good linebacker in free agency. That'll be like our semi big outside acquisition.
Yeah, and then another position I think that needs to be addressed. Because of the fact that, listen, Adoree Jackson, he's on the last year of his contract. Going in this year is the last year of his contract. And I mean, if first of all, injury prone central with him, but you kind of would like to have a second piece that'd be reliable with him, kind of in my head. So either this goes in with the draft too. I could see us completely drafting Joey Porter Jr. at number 25 if he falls there.
I'm a fan of him. Yeah, I've been looking at some of the prospects, specifically at that cornerback position, because I think that's where we're going. I think it's gonna be wide receiver, cornerback with our pick. I'm almost like 95%. It's gonna be wide receiver, cornerback.
Osiris Torrance is a name to watch too.
Who?
Osiris Torrance. He's the Florida guard.
Oh yeah. I'm a fan of him too. If we're gonna go interior offensive line, that's what we'll do in the first round. We'll go with him. Yeah. But I think it's gonna be wide receiver corner. But as far as Adoree Jackson goes, he's an interesting case. I think the Giants may at least consider extending him.
Make it cheap.
Yeah, like not like $20 million a year, but maybe he's willing to extend for 2 or 3 more years for $12 or $13 million a year, and you can kind of space that money out.
Yeah.
But even if they do that. And he may not be willing to do that. Very possible. If he's not, fine. You just let him walk after the end of the year.
Tough.
But and the same thing with Leonard Williams. I think they'll try to do that. They'll go to him with that to try to create cap space this year.
Yeah.
But if regardless, even if Adoree Jackson is in the plans for this team for the next 3 years, which he could be, you still have to get a corner. Like with the defense that Wink runs, like. You need really strong corner play. Like if you really want to be able to maximize this type of defense. And I fully believe they wanted Sauce Gardner last year. Like,
pick 5. That was going to be the pick.
Sauce Gardner take him. So he wasn't there. We got a great consolation prize. But I think this year, based off of value, that's where we're going to answer the cornerback position. There's a lot, and all of them seem to be a really good fit for this defense. Like my first mock draft, I had Ringo going to the Giants because I had Porter off the board.
Whoa. Ringo, is he the Alabama corner?
Ringo, I think he's Georgia, right? He's Georgia, I think. Maybe he's Alabama. I think he's Georgia. No, maybe he's Alabama. I always get those two schools confused because they're both incredible in the SEC. But he's Georgia. Yeah. Kelly, I'm looking at it right now, Kelly Ringo. But he's just a good fit. He's a man press cover corner. He's 6'2", 210. I know a lot of people shy away from Georgia corners after what happened with DeAndre Baker, but he's a good fit for this scheme. This Joey Porter's a great fit for this scheme. Witherspoon, but I don't think he'll be there. But like that, I think that's what it should. The need meets the value with where we're picking. That I think we're gonna end up with one of these top 5 or 6 corners in this draft. That's what I think we're going with.
Right, and also something that I do mock drafts, of course, on my Instagram page and everything. But something I've looked at is like, all right, like most of the mock drafts have all the wide receivers going before us. I mean, in the simulators I've done, like there is very rarely that Jordan Addison, which is the name everyone's attracted to, which Justin Pennick of Talking Giants and Bobby Skinner.
I love them.
You've been on there before. They brought up the fact that man's a slot wide receiver. Jordan Addison is a slot wide receiver. We invested our 2nd round pick in Wan'Dale Robinson last year.
Well, so is the other guy. So is Zay Flowers that people love. He's a slot too. Yeah.
And I'm like, I get that Wan'Dale's probably not going to be back till mid-year. I understand that, but I'm not. I think I'd rather go if there's an outside receiver there, which I don't think there will be, I'd rather get an X receiver in the 2nd round than reach on or draft a slot wide receiver in the 1st round. I honestly do, because there's someone like Jalen Hyatt, the Tennessee wide receiver there in the 2nd round. I'm taking him.
I'm going to be honest with you about Hyatt. I know the mocks say that. I don't think he's going to be there. I don't think so. I don't think he'll get to the late. I mean, maybe, listen, if you would have told me, like, there's been so many players, I'm like, I don't think he's going to be there, and he gets there. So he might. But I have Jalen Hyatt as like a late 1st rounder. I could see the Chiefs taking Jalen Hyatt. I think he'd be a really good fit there. But
I think he's going to be one of those people that rises up draft boards during this. Like, we got Combine coming up at the end of February, and then we got Pro Days. I think he's going to, because like a lot of mocks have him falling all the way to the like 2nd round, like late 2nd round too. I think he's going to be one of those guys who does fly up the boards, kind of like John Michael Schmitz, which I love the man. He dominated.
If we get him in the 2nd round, I'd love that pick.
He dominated at the Senior Bowl. I don't know if you watched the Senior Bowl at all.
I watched Bobby's coverage of it, and
they do a good job.
I saw some of the highlights of Schmitz, and I mean, he was the talk of the Senior Bowl. He went from a guy that was a lot of people thought was a 3rd round pick to a guy that might be a 1st round pick. He had a big Senior Bowl.
Right. And so he took advantage of that opportunity. I think Jalen Hyatt might take advantage of the Combine, Pro Days, etc. That kind of process.
Happens every year. Like last year it was Trey Walker, right? Like, I mean, he won the Underwear Olympics and he was the 1st overall pick. Like, it's like every year there's like 3 to 5 guys that significantly help their draft stock at the Combine.
Yeah, but very interesting to see. Actually, going along with the Combine is I think that's going to be a big week for the Giants, because that's when a lot of contracts, kind of get like that's a big week for Saquon Barkley and Danial Jones negotiations. The Combine week, because that's always you have people in person kind of thing, and that's when I think. In Patricia Train's latest video on Locked On Giants, I think she mentioned that's going to be a huge week for those negotiations. But
I mean, if I'm looking at it like if you're Shane, and I'm going to be on her channel on Thursday, so I'm excited to talk to her about that.
Locked On Giants live with Trina.
I'm excited. But you look at like the upcoming schedule for the Giants. If you're Shane, I would think you'd want to get this Danial Jones deal done before March 2nd, because the Combine is kind of like the hot spot for, like, he doesn't want to have his mind on Danial Jones. He want to have his mind on the draft. Like, that's where you're going to be analyzing these players, and the tag deadline is March 7th. So I think the Giants have to get a deal done with Jones before March 7th. Otherwise, they're going to have to tag him. So I'm kind of the mindset that this Jones deal is going to get done very soon. I think it's going to get done before the Combine, if I had to guess.
Oh, okay.
I think it'll get done between now and March 1st. I think they're going to get a deal done. I really do.
I've kind of told myself at this point that like the number is going to come out and it might be a big uncomfortable number, but there's going to be like, years you can get out of it, guaranteed money, all that kind of stuff. And so it's going to be fine, I think. But that's just the quarterback market. I mean, on GMFB, like Good Morning Football, they were talking about like there really is no in between with the quarterback market these days. Like
Listen, I'm going to put your mind at it. Well, I'm going to do it much more in depth when Jones signs the contract, when I get to break it down and compare it to, contracts of the past.
Yeah.
But all you got, it's mathematics. Everybody just looks at the millions. It's about percentages. That's what it's about, because the cap goes up every year. In 2014, Alex Smith with the Chiefs, who I frequently compare to what I think the Giants are going to do with Danial Jones. And hopefully Danial Jones sticks around and he becomes our Pat Mahomes. But at a bare minimum, I think he's going to be that 3 or 4 year option, like Alex Smith was for the Chiefs, as they built up the team and then they went out and they got their Superman once they had that Super Bowl roster. If Danial Jones does not become that, right?
Yeah, I mean,
you look at Alex Smith's contract in 2014, it was $17 million a year on average, which equated to 14 to 15% of the cap. Yeah. That's what Danial Jones would be. He'd be about 15% of the cap. And then the way they structured that salary, it was very reasonable over the course of those 4 years. So I think people just look at people are going to see the $38 million a year on average or the $40 million a year on average. And trust me, I don't want it to be 40. I want it to be $10 a year on average. But I think it's going to be in that 37, 38 to $40 million area. And their jaw is going to drop and they're going to scream. But when you digest it, when you breathe, when you look at the contract, the way they're going, Joe Schoen's a smart guy. He's not an idiot, right? They're gonna be fine. They're gonna maneuver this money around so they could build this football team the right way. I'm not worried about it.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely trust in Joe Schoen, you know? Like this shirt says, make the Giants great again, you know?
There you go.
I trust him. I trust Dable, I trust Schoen. I think even more than Judge. Everyone keeps telling me, "Oh, but you said the same thing about Joe Judge." And I was like, yes, because he had a big mouth and talked a big game.
You're a fan.
You
want to give these guys a chance and believe in them.
Yeah, I remember. Were you at not this past Fan Fest, but 2021 Fan Fest?
Were you there? Yeah, I was running.
Yeah, where we ran the lap. We ran the lap.
Oh, you were there too. Yeah,
I was there. I was there.
I think I remember you from being there.
Yeah, it was crazy. We ran the lap, and that was like the first trial run of you guys doing the podcast. I remember you guys doing the podcast, and I was like, this would be so great if we could hear you. That was the trial. Of course, you guys got speakers this past year, but unfortunately, I couldn't make it this past year. But yeah, I mean, that was a great example of like, man, this guy's our coach. Like, we're all in kind of thing. And I still have the post on my Instagram to this day. I ran a lap for our coach Joe Judge, and but you know that's what fans do. I mean, that's what you do. You buy in.
Yeah, you got to buy in and at least give these guys a chance, man. And Judge failed. It is what it is. You move on. You go to Dable. Dable's off to a great start.
Yeah, and also you want to see it translate to year two, of course. If you remember, everyone wants to always make comparisons to Buffalo. Buffalo kind of regressed year two, if you remember. Like after they went to the playoffs,
they got a rookie quarterback.
Right. They got a rookie quarterback, right? Which we're not. I don't think we're going that avenue. So I guess you can put his confidence. But to wrap up the show, a couple other like talking points I had were wide receiver group. So I know you mentioned on your podcast DeAndre Hopkins.
Yeah.
Interesting case with him. He's 30 years old. I believe he's 30 years old.
He might be 31. Maybe it's next year he's going to be 31. But he's right in that 30-31 area.
30-31 range. Probably would cost like third round, fourth round. Probably like Amari Cooper's a good comp comparison to him. Kind of like that kind of trade. But the other thing that worries me, that holds me back is he wants that contract extension. He wants the extension. Yeah. And to me, like, I kind of want to see how it goes before I give him that, like I kind of want to see.
I'm not giving him, I mean, within reason, I suppose, but I'm not giving a 31-year-old receiver who's had injury troubles. If I could trade for him, I don't got to extend him. Okay. I'll give you 2 third-round picks.
And another name, I know you've been like really like heck no to this, T. Higgins.
Oh, I'm not heck no to that. For the Giants, heck yes to that. Yeah. But from like realistically speaking, well, heck no, because like why I don't think the Bengals are going to trade him. But if the Bengals are willing to trade T. Higgins, I'll give up the first round pick for him.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I've been saying is like he has to be available, of course. But the reason I think he might be available is just because you look at his situation. He was a second round draft pick, so he has 1 year left on his
and you don't have to fit your option with him.
Right. He has 1 year left on his contract.
Yeah.
And he he wants wide receiver one money. Understandably, he's put up 1,000-yard seasons, I believe, back to back. And he could be a wide receiver one anywhere else in this league, probably, or like most situations. And so I think that's why I lean towards kind of like the AJ Brown situation. Titans didn't want to pay him, and they shipped him off. So I could see that happening. Of course, he has to be available, like you said, but I would give up my first round draft pick. And
yeah, no doubt about it.
That third round comp pick, I believe it was like it was a pick from the Chiefs. Whatever the third round pick was from the Chiefs, it was like some weird. It's what they got in return for like Ryan Poles that went to the Bears to be their GM or whatever.
Yeah.
It was that pick. Yeah. And so
Tony trade,
I would take that, and I would take the first round pick. I'd say, look, we'll give you this. Do you want it? And if they say no, oh well. I mean, that's their loss. He can hit free agency, or they can franchise tag him for the big number. But they have to pay Joe Burrow, and they have to pay Jamar Chase coming up. Because Jamar Chase, he'll be after his 3 years. After this year, he'll be after his 3 years where he can get a new contract, and he's going to want the new contract.
He'll hold out. He's going to get it.
Yeah, you're right. So, but interesting situation. But Chris, thanks you so much for coming on with me. I want to do this again. I know a lot of my followers on Instagram, when I did a live and I was like, we're having Chris The Entertainah on, they were like, no way. Like, they were like, you should do a live with him sometime. So I'm starting my live shows in the beginning of March, so kind of when free agency news starts to pick up, all that. So
no, man, I can't guarantee every time you ask, but
right.
I always try to work with Giants content creators. So anytime you ask, I may not that week, but if I'm free and I can make time, I'll always come on.
Yeah, thank you so much, and I love watching your shows. I definitely will look at your new video that you just posted this past couple minutes. But thank you for coming on. I appreciate you taking time, and I will hopefully talk to you later.
All right, Gabe, be good. Thank you for everybody for all the support you guys always show to all of us on YouTube. But yeah, Gabe, I'll talk to you soon. I'm actually going to pop on another podcast right now. I said I was going to go on. So I appreciate you for having me on, man.
Thanks, Chris. See you.
Be good, Gabe.
Chris The Entertainah. Wow, what a great episode, guys. I appreciate all of you. Again, continue to share the podcast, continue to like, subscribe, and comment. And until next time, let's go Big Blue.